But yeah, we had a work party on Sunday to just invite volunteers to come help research material for
The baseball cards.
And went really well, man. And it wasn't a huge crowd or anything. It was like 8 people, but we got a lot done. And so we're gonna start trying to have those maybe once a month or so, with kind of different themes like filing public records requests, building databases and stuff like that.
Awesome.
I love them too, because of course we're just building out your middle school guys on one side, so of course it's like a lot, right? Like I remember that.
So it's just she just goes through a giant Sure, yeah. And the good thing about it is how
I don't know, I get my name with
she feels so much. Oh, yeah.
It's not like they have like
there's so much more.
they all
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready. Start.
I think that's not my magic.
Okay. Alright, so hi everyone, this is C Night School. Thank you so much for tuning in if you're online. Thank you so much for being here in person. If you're in person, my name is Ken. I'm one of the organizers, and we are going to go ahead and get started with introductions, some house rules, and then a land acknowledgement. So go ahead.
My name is Emma T. Day.
My name is Ken Sheehurst.
I'm David Dehan.
Justin Ian.
Claire Freehan.
Okay, awesome. House rules. Phones on silent if you haven't already. Please no video or photo recording, so you've got everything streamed and recorded. And then we are going to take questions at the end. If you have any questions that aren't being answered or weren't answered in the session, please contact one of the organizers. Please contact our Instagram page or put it in the chat. Let's go ahead and get started with our acknowledgements.
Yeah, so at night school, we are developing a land back pledge in place of holding a land acknowledgement ceremony. We know that this is unceded territory. We know that we should feel bad about being on that and try to make things better, but we want to actually work here to commit to looking for ways that we can restore lands to the real owners, and commit ourselves to living in cultivating awareness that we belong to the land, do not own it, and support the rights of those who rightfully belong.
And I will just solidify that with a short reading from Chief Seattle's speech. This was his response to the negotiations with the U.S. federal government that were happening at the time, and of course the Point Elliott Treaty, I believe, was the treaty that was never solidified with the Duwamish people on whose land we are now speaking. So he was responding to the federal government saying, "We will ponder your proposition, and when we decide, we will let you know. But should we accept it, I here and now make this condition that we will not be denied the privilege without molestation of visiting at any time the tombs of our ancestors, friends, and children. Every part of this soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished. Even the rocks, which seem to be dead as the swelter in the sun along the silent shore swell, they thrill with the memories of stirring events connected with the lives of my people, and the very dust upon which you now stand responds more lovingly to their footsteps than to yours, because it is rich with the blood of our ancestors, and our bare feet are conscious of the sympathetic touch. At night, when the streets of your cities and villages are silent and you think them deserted, they will throng with the returning hosts that once filled them and still love this beautiful land. The white man will never be alone."
Awesome, thank you, David. And just as a reminder, because we are on unceded Duwamish land, you can pay real rent. I encourage you to look that up and contribute if you can. And if you're not able to contribute, at least share it. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. All right, Justin, take it away.
Hi, thank you, everybody. Wait. So my name is Justin Ward. I'm here representing Divest SPD. I'm sure probably most of you, since you came here, you're probably pretty familiar with Divest SPD, but I'll just give us a short introduction. We are a small group of police researchers and journalists and activists, etc. What we do is we publish bad news about the cops. That's basically our whole thing. We do that, based on public records requests, OPA reports, police data, just various materials. We assemble those and create content about the cops. And I sort of reject the label of a police accountability group. We're not. I don't use those terms. We're not a police accountability group because the goal of police accountability is to improve or maintain the sorry.
It's reform.
Yeah, right. Right. It's to maintain the legitimacy of the police. We are a propaganda group. We do agitation and propaganda to delegitimize the police and to abolish and defund, etc. Okay. So into the presentation. So today, what I'm going to talk about is some basic techniques, like using open data, because we get a lot of questions and comments like saying, "Hey, I saw this thing happen on the street. Here's a little clip or video. Can you look into this? Can you see what happened?" Because it's like somebody will be curious about it. This happens pretty regularly, and just honestly, I don't have enough time because like I said, we're a small group, and like I'm the one doing like most of the research, so I don't really have enough time to investigate all these incidents. So I wanted to do two things. I wanted to give people the ability to investigate things themselves, and then also to like equip people and bring them into this process so that they can contribute to this like broader project. So. Okay, at the end of this lesson, you're going to learn basically three things. You're going to learn to find the incident number, to determine the charges of, like, this is basically like things that you see on the street, right? Like, so you see something on the street, you want to learn something about it. This is going to teach you how to learn, like, basically everything that you can learn short of filing a public records request. There will be a brief section at the end. So we're going to start with finding the incident number, determining the charges, like against the person who's been arrested or being beaten or tased or whatever. And then 3, to file a targeted request for additional information using the information that you found using this guide. So we're going to use a few tools in this this lesson, and a lot of them are going to be found. You can actually. Sorry, I didn't put the link there, but if you go to our Instagram page or allmylinks.com/DivestSPD, you can find links to all these resources that I'm mentioning towards the bottom. So the first one is call data. Like SPD has basically a large volume of call data going back to like 2010 or whatever, and it's actually very useful, very detailed, and has lots of different information. I can't really like go over all of it right now, but and that's available on data.seattle.gov. Arrest data, very similarly, SPD has data.seattle.gov has arrest data, where you can look up basically any arrest that's happened in the last like 15, 20 years. And the SPD blotter, I mean, I know, you know, the blotter is kind of propaganda and it's very like selective, but it is a useful source of information about, you know, they do actually have quite a number of significant incident reports, and you can find information about incidents just by looking if you have the incident number or just like checking the day that it happened. There's a good chance that you can find some information on the blog. Okay, so we're going to start with like a real scenario. And we're going to kind of like put ourselves in this scene. This happened last December. And so you're walking just out of Judkins Park, and you see so many cops, like 20 cops, like doing something. You see an ambulance. It's about 4 p.m. And then you see somebody being loaded into a ambulance. You're at the corner of South Bush and Hiawatha. And you see somebody loaded into an ambulance. He's an Asian man. He's about 40 years old, roundabout, and he appears to be injured. And so you're like, okay, what's going on? What happened here? And you want to know, and you know, you're trying to ask the cops, like, and they're just telling you, like, get back, you know, like they're in your face. You can't really get anything out of them. Like, nobody else around has seen what happened. Nobody can tell you anything. So how do you figure out what happened? So the first thing, as I mentioned, we're going to look for the incident number. That's the report number. It's the number that they use to track like a police report, or also all the files like associated with the police report, and the evidence is going to be used on the incident number is like the key to finding all that. And so it's also the same as the CAD number. So it's the same as the call number. The call number and the incident number are the same. So it's also called a general offense number.
Is this through the City of Seattle Open Data Portal?
Yeah, it's data.seattle.gov.
Okay.
And then search for call call data. So the incident number is a year and then a hyphen and then 6 digits. And basically like the way it works is it's like sequential. So they assign the first incident of the year will be 00001. And so it's just like, and then the higher you get throughout the year. So that'll kind of like, you know, the number will kind of give you like an idea of the sequence of you know, when, where it fits like in the year. And so why is the incident number so important? Like I said, it's basically used to like track everything. And then it's also, you know, in these open data sources, like Seattle is actually very blessed to have a wealth of data available to us like online about the police. And so, and we can use like all that data to find out just tons of information just like immediately available to us. And so there's arrest data, there's crisis data, if it's a crisis contact, you know, you can see all these things if like somebody has been like involuntarily committed, or you know, if they use force against a person in crisis. Terry stop data, Terry stops are like, I don't know if you are familiar with that term, Terry stop, but it's an investigative detention. So it's like just short of a arrest, you know, it's like a stop just to question you. Then it's also used in disciplinary data. Like I'm not gonna really go into this, but like there is a place where you can look up a incident number and see if there's an associated OPA case. So like if anybody wants to like know a little bit about that, we can talk afterwards. But like I didn't include that in this presentation, but that's also a very useful use of an incident. And this is the most important thing of all, is it helps you file a targeted public records request. Because like, you know, whenever you're filing a public records request, they're going to ask you for the incident number, and you don't need it to file a request, but it kind of like reduces the time that they'll spend like researching your request, because they can go right to the correct incident. And then 2, it kind of eliminates like sort of the potential for error, you know, which is crucial if you're like filing a public records request and it takes them like 6 months to find out you got the wrong thing. You don't want to do that. So that's why it's very important to have the incident number. I'll get to that. Just hold on for a second. Okay, so like if you guys, if you have your phone, like, or you know, like a laptop. I guess we don't have Wi-Fi here, but you know, you guys can try this out. Like when you get home too. Like you know, we'll send you the presentation. But okay, so the first thing we're going to do to find an incident number is we're going to go to dataseattle.gov and search for call data. And then when you get to the call data page, you see this right here, you go to actions and query data. And so that's going to like open up a little interface that's like a database interface. So next what we're going to do is you go down to the bottom and you'll see this thing that says filters. And so it'll have like these multiple like fields where you can add filters. And the first thing you're going to filter is for time, or the date and the time. It's all in the same field. It's this field that says CAD event original time queue. So that describes the time that the dispatcher like created a CAD event and put it in the queue on the dispatch. So it's like the very first time that the call came in. Now see, like going back to our scenario, like we're showing up, we don't know when this event was queued. You know, so it was like we're showing up at 4 o'clock. So we don't really know, the answer actually is like 45 minutes before then. So you want to start with a good broad like range just to start with. Because we're going to narrow it down by location. So you want to start with about 2 hours or maybe 3, just to be on the safe side. And so you do you switch it to is between then 4:30 and 6:30. So that covers the range. So next you hit and then add. And so we're going to do the location. And so there's different ways we can do the location. Like we could just search, broadly within the beat. But like, I think the easiest way is like if you're standing there and you're looking at the street, is to just start with the street that it was on. So in this case, we're at the corner of Hiawatha and South Bush. And so you do dispatch address contains instead of like is, or there's a bunch of options like is or is greater or whatever. This is contained, so like it'll basically give any address that contains the word Hiawatha. And so combine these two together, you should get the incident that we're looking for. And this is like the only incident. Like, cause like all these rows like represent the same incident. They're all like, each one represents an individual officer dispatched. So you go to the front row, CAD event number is the name of the incident number. And it'll be written like this with a bunch of zeros in the middle, but the zeros represent a hyphen. So there you have the number 2025-356-422, and that's your incident number. Okay, so the next step is to go to the arrest data. Because what we want to do is we want to find out more, because this was obviously an arrest. Like sometimes, sometimes stuff that's like on the call data doesn't result in arrest. You can look at like the outcome on the call data. But some, most of the serious incidents where we see like violence or something worth noteworthy, like it's going to be an arrest. And then so we're going to like drill down further into the arrest data. And so you go to the arrest data, and this is a little confusing because we got the number out of the CAD events data section, but now on the arrest data, it's going to be the field is going to be called report number. And so you just copy paste that number into that and then filter it, and you'll get the incident. So now we have the incident that we're looking for. It's singled out, and we can find a wide variety of data about this incident within the arrest data set. And so the first thing that we want to do is look at the charges, because the charges will be very important later in terms of like whether we're going to look at the King County data or we're going to look at like the municipal court. So like we really want to take a note of the charges first. And here, here the offenses are all misdemeanors. Okay, so one is obstructing arrest, and the other are for carrying concealed weapons. Like, so I mean, not to really give the game away, but this event was like about a man in crisis, like with an axe, like swinging around, right? And this was actually, I think, just a few days after the police shooting in South Seattle. So it was like under significant. This was very close to being 2 police shootings in a row, but they managed to work it out. Like it resolved itself like a little bit differently, but like But yeah, I mean, they took this man crisis in for misdemeanor. The second thing that is very useful too is they have these tags, right? That one is crisis, a crisis tag, a complaint tag, and a force tag. So, the crisis means that this was written up as a crisis contact, and then I'm not really going to cover this thing, but you can go into there's an entire crisis data set, and you can kind of see like what happened there and how it was written up. And then this says, was force involved? Yes. And so you can go also to the force data, and you can look up. I don't think the incident numbers in the force data, but you can look up just like by the date and like what happened. So you can find out there. And the last one is complaint. And so there was no complaint filed about this, but if there is a complaint filed, then you can actually go to the complaint tracker data set, and then you can look up the reports in there and then find out what the OPA investigation number is. So that's all very, very useful stuff right there. And then you can also find out information. There's demographic information. There's demographics about the officers, which is not quite so useful because it's like only for the officer who wrote the report, so and often the officer who wrote the report is like a student officer for some reason. Like, I don't really, I guess they give them like these tasks because they're kind of like low on the totem pole or like, to get practice or whatever. But here, I feel like the subject information, the arrestee, is often useful. Like particularly, like there's like each one's given an anonymous ID, and so you can actually go back, you can filter by that ID, and you can look at all the other like police contacts with this person and kind of see how those are resolved. So you can kind of get like a broader story of, which it's especially useful if you have somebody who's been in crisis, they've been harassed by police a lot, they've been kind of in trouble. I think that can be a very useful like exercise to filter that. Okay, yeah, this is back to what I was mentioning, the blotter. And see, so the blotter has like what they call significant incidents. Sometimes it's like an entire article in and of itself, but sometimes it's kind of like briefs, like little paragraphs about an incident. And in this case, this was a significant incident, but they didn't really like include, a lot of details about it. But sometimes these will be listed, and you can see here, there's the report number, but sometimes they don't have it. So you can kind of do like a Google site search of the blotter, or just like search it on the website, or you can just like manually go in and go to December and then like scroll through and find December 5th and then look for it there. So this is I just want to like point out too, like the interesting thing about, or I don't even know if you'd say it's interesting, but the thing about like the blotter is like they often completely omit any force, like totally, like, I'll find out later that, somebody was tasered or they shot him with a 40 millimeter or something like that. But this one's kind of unusual because it does mention that they use, I guess it doesn't say a 40 millimeter specifically. It just says an officer deployed a less lethal tool and the subject dropped the weapon. So yeah, I mean, they try to make it as vague as possible, but you can get a lot of useful information from this. Okay, so like, lastly, I mean, this is what it's all about. This is, this is kind of, you want to do this stuff like, to figure out as much information as possible. So you can then file a public records request and go a little bit deeper. And so usually I do this in 2 phases. Like I do want to get like I do want to get body cam footage often, about specific incidents, but like I kind of want to figure out what happened and who was involved first before I file that. And so what you can do is you can request a police report, but you don't, this is kind of like the pro tip, is you don't want to request a police report from SPD, because they will take fucking forever, like to do anything. So you want to try, whenever possible, to get information from like another source, and the other source is usually the courts or the prosecutors, which historically have a better record of getting things back faster, as long as you're very, like for example, to use as an example from around here, like last year during the May 24th, after those rallies, those arrests, I got all the video that I could from the prosecutors. Like I looked at, there were like 6 felony arrests. I figured out who those people were who were arrested, figured out what the incident numbers were, and then I kind of like filed separate requests from like burner accounts. So, and then I was able to get that, pretty fast. Like, some of them were faster than others, but like, so that's kind of the trick. Like, what you want to do is like you want to request police reports. For prosecutors, sometimes Seattle, it's kind of hit or miss, but if something actually like went to court, or is like in court right now, like the Seattle City Attorney will usually have the police reports. And so you can file a request to them, or you can file a request to the municipal court. And going back to what I was saying earlier about like figuring out what the charges are, anything that has an SMC in the charges is something that you can get from the municipal court or the city attorney. Felonies will have RCW, which is the state code. And so if you see that in the arrest records, then you go to the King County prosecutor.
And folks, just real quick, we're saving questions for the end. Again, if you have any questions that aren't answered at the end, please come and talk to either me, one of the other organizers, or Justin. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the last slide. Okay, so, and here's like body camera and in-car video tips. I guess, first off, I should say with like, if you can, or if you want to get something back faster, or if something only kind of relates, like you're looking at like a police chase or something like that, just request the in-car videos or request it separately, because those don't need to be redacted at all. So you can save yourself money, you can save yourself time by just requesting like the in-car video. But in terms of body cameras, the main goal or the main tip I have is to like always be as specific as possible. That's what I was saying to, why you want to get the police reports first, because like you will have like a lot of people, a lot of cops will just be on scene. They won't like actually witness anything. They'll just be there doing scene control, like they'll be standing on the edges. They will produce hours and hours of like useless videos. And so like never ever want to request all body camera footage. You want to get those police reports. You want to see who were the main officers, see who like actually interacted. And just like one caveat is, it's kind of hard to tell who used force because this is something I didn't really like learn until I actually started looking at a lot of police reports. Is they almost never record force in a police report, and like this has to be something that they're trained to do. Like they only like most of the time they'll it's very rare to see that like or and if they do put it in there, like actually in the report for this example that we did, they just say like force was used, or they won't say like I used force. So that's reported completely separately, and I think it's some kind of like legal thing to where they want to kind of keep, if they have to submit this into evidence, they want to kind of keep that separately, like the emotion of using force on somebody. And so, yeah, so you want to, but I think just by reading the police reports, usually like you'll be able to kind of tell who used force, like kind of like reading in the subtext, because they'll say something, they put kind of like the justification for using force in the report, but they don't put the actual force itself. It's like, like in this case, in this example that I showed you about the guy with the axe, because they were like saying, he was in a populated area, he was menacing, like, let's say stuff like that. And then you can kind of read between the lines, and just by who's writing the report, you could say, okay, these 3 people were in the vicinity when this happened, or these were the people who saw like the most of the thing. So you want to use the police reports to figure out who to request, to narrow it down to like a small group of people. And so then, yeah, that's my second point, is to specify the officers. So you never want to say all body cam footage. You want to say footage from all officers that use force, narrow it down that way, or you want to narrow it down to all officers who are on the scene, or the best is to specify like a specific officer, like from officers hog and officers swine and whatever. Next, you want to limit your request to specific time frames. I have found like a lot of frustration with record staff that say, it kind of varies from department to department. With SPD, but I've had a lot of record staff say that they lack the capability to make clips. So, which I think is strange. Like, I don't know, don't they have DLC media player or something like that? Just like anything. But what you can do is you can ask them to apply blanket redactions from a specified point. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be a time frame, but it could be like between events. You could say, okay, you have my permission to just like redact everything before this happens and then after this happens. And what I usually do is I bracket it off by when they make contact, and then everything before when they make contact, when they make contact with the subject, the words you use, and then everything after the subject is secured in the vehicle, the police vehicle, or the ambulance. And so that usually gives you a good frame, and then also kind of it eliminates some other kind of bullshit that like they'll sometimes include. It's just like if you ask for everything, because like they'll have like videos of them doing inventories of evidence, which I don't know. It's depending on what we're looking at. That might be useful, but like most of the time, like we're looking at them using force or them making an arrest or something like that. So we don't really like want that bullshit, or we don't necessarily like want them I don't know, talking to their commanders, or there's all kinds of bullshit that takes place. If you're looking for the incident itself, like you kind of want to bracket that off. And okay, lastly, if this goes back to what I was saying earlier, if you found out that like an incident like ended with felony charges, you can request the videos directly from the prosecutor. You can't really do this with like I've had kind of bad luck trying to do this with the Seattle City Attorney's Office. Because like a lot of times they don't actually have the videos. I mean, sometimes they do, or sometimes they have like sections of video evidence, but like it's usually not good. But if you're just dealing with felony, you can go to the King County prosecutor. Okay, that's it.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I have quite a few. So, we're outside of SPD request. Is that through the city public records request or through Seattle Municipal Court? You have multiple different locations.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So you said for getting body cam footage or records outside of SPD, right?
Right.
When you go in to do a Seattle public records request, it comes up with like multiple categories.
Yeah.
So one category is like called city public records request. Another category is Seattle Municipal Court.
Yeah, they just added those. Like you can file requests. You know, for the one about the police report, you can request that from the municipal court portal. You can file a request for that. But if you want to, or you could also file it just from the city law department, which is within city requests. So that's kind of, the law department includes the municipal court, so. It includes the municipal court and the the city attorney's office, so.
Okay. And then what happens when somebody is initially charged with a felony and it's reduced? Would you go to, where would you file that request first? Like,
I would go to the King County first, just because like I don't really know what their records retention policies are, but I think the King County prosecutor probably does retain like all the evidence they have, at least for a period in case it has to like come back to them. So, and I think they would generally also like have more stuff. I've had a lot better luck requesting things from King County prosecutors than from other sources.
If I may jump in, when I worked for FEMA, our records retention was at least 3 years. That wasn't just for FEMA, that was who we're working with as well. So the records are gonna be around for a while, so you should be able to check that out if that's been recorded.
Yes.
We have a question in the chat that says, do these records requests cost money?
Yeah, I mean, usually there's, at least within the city of Seattle, there's like a standard fee of like just $1.25, so it's nominal. I don't even know like why they charge that. Like I think it's just because so if you don't pay it, it'll get abandoned. So it's just like a hold tax. Like I don't know, but there are varying ranges of fees, for body cam redactions. Like I don't think like the state law doesn't really like specify any sort of limit about how much fees they can charge you. But it's like they said, they can charge you like reasonable fees. And so usually it's like 45 or 50. It's basically like what the hour of the employee's time costs. So if the employees make like $55 an hour, it'll cost you, if they take an hour to gas something, it'll cost you like $55. But like, I've only been charged from SPD for videos like a few times, like, and it's usually been around like $40 to $60.
So if you were trying to find like information about a specific officer, is that information generally available in the reports, or is there like a way you can like kind of Google like a specific officer?
In which reports?
Like when you're pulling them up on this website, you're searching by the CAD data and all that, and you get the like.
No, see, like everything's anonymous in the call data, but they just added a new thing where they put their call signs. Like it's kind of like tacked on to like the in a specific area. And the tricky thing with that though is that like the call signs kind of it's based on the car, and the call signs change up every day, or like they might not be driving the same car because there's only like 400 cars, and then they like share them, and but you can kind of use that. That's kind of like a little bit more advanced than like the scope of this, but like you can use that to kind of sort of guess, or you can match them up because the call signs are like associated with like specific beats and radius, so you can kind of like figure it out a little bit, just like based on that, or it's a little bit more like kind of OSINT type stuff, like but yeah, and they're also like within the other data, there's officer IDs, and like those are sort of like protected from like public records release, but we have like a way to figure all them out. So like if you want to like know something about it, you can like contact me, or if you see something in the data and you want to know who this officer is, like the use of force data or the disciplinary data, you can contact us. Yeah.
Is there ever any information about encampment sweeps in the call data or incident reports?
Actually, like this is kind of related to what I was saying to him, is like in the call data, there are call signs, and the call signs, there is a unit called the Alternative Response Team. That's like a specialized sweep police. They're like about a dozen, I think, or so. And they all have their own call signs. And so you could actually, just filter by those call signs. It's a little messy because the call signs in the data have like the incident number like attached to it. So you have to kind of like break that apart, that you can filter by I think the call signs are literally just like ART1, ART2, and so you could use that to kind of like estimate the number of sweeps, just kind of like filter out those.
So I have a question, I don't know if you can answer it, but this is more like on other neighboring jurisdictions.
Mhm.
So Bellevue Police, they use Norcom,
Mhm.
and they actually, Norcom is in charge of the dispatch calls, so the voice recordings of those calls, as well as the call log. But it gets deleted after 3 months.
Oh, yeah. Well, can you, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, I'm curious, like, what you might know about our neighboring jurisdictions, because they seem to handle things a bit differently. Like, this is great that everything is centralized here in Seattle through that open
Yeah.
project, but,
Well, like, I haven't really been too much, like, focused on east side stuff, even though we did do a story today that was kind of, given to us by a tipster about Clyde Hill. But, I mean, that is something that I would, like, right now I'm trying to keep my focus on, like, SPD, but also branching out. We've been doing more stories about King County, like, the last month, a lot. And, you know, I would like to sort of investigate, issues, in Bellevue. Like, we have data on Bellevue misconduct and stuff like that. And so that is something that we're like looking into, but it is kind of like a capacity thing. You know, it's like, I do want to kind of build relationships to like, because, you know, there's a guy who's on Twitter, we haven't really, we kind of interacted, he has like Bellevue Misconduct Watch, and then like, you know, we've talked to some people who are organizing up in Bellingham, and, you know, kind of like all over the state, but we haven't really, you know, formalized it into like a network, and I think that's really like the next step. And well, something, you know, I haven't announced, like, but I put it out kind of, you know, a little bit like earlier at the beginning of the year is I'm actually building a statewide police misconduct database. And so we got fiscal sponsorship through the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability. So basically, like I am technically like now a nonprofit or whatever, but it's like now we can write grants. We wrote like our first one, but we haven't heard back from it. We're actually going to hear back from them to see if our grant was accepted as a Social Justice Fund Northwest, to see if that was accepted just like any day now. I think it's maybe on the 12th or something. So yeah, we're writing grants. We're gonna, you know, we've got like a prototype that's about to go up. It's just like it's kind of a version. I don't know if you've seen SPD Watch. It's a little bit like a more of a simplified, streamlined version that's just kind of like, and actually like my friend Madison, who kind of has been with Divest SPD for a long time, she built SPD Watch, and like she's going to help me build a prototype of this statewide database. And so we already have like a lot of data. We just have to kind of prep it and get it into like one form and one you know, tool. And so we're working on that.
Any other questions in person? Do we have any more questions online?
No, we don't have any. They said congrats, by the way, for your.
All right.
Can I just make a plug to donate to our Venmo and our support our project?
Absolutely.
Venmo at DivestSPD, or sign up for our Ko-Fi, which, you know, we have like recurring monthly donations. The lowest level is like $5. So just please support us and support our work.
Are you looking for people to help with the work?
Yes. Oh, that's something. Are you talking about with the database?
Anything to help get involved? Like how do people join?
Yeah. That's a good question, because like basically we're gonna start doing monthly like workshops. Like I want to do more stuff like this, or kind of like a series. Like I'm working with somebody who's part of who's an educator who's gonna actually help me create a curriculum to do like regular workshops. And so we're gonna start trying to do those once a month. But then also in addition to that, like right now we don't really have. It's kind of like a catch-22, you know, thing. It's like it's hard for me to like, you know, absorb like volunteer labor because we don't really have like a project management thing. Like one of our members, Rye, is actually supposed to like. Well, actually, Rye and Chipmunks are like our tech person, and she's supposed to, you know, like come up with a project management thing. But it's like she got derailed. She had to go to the hospital, and it was a whole thing. But okay, I'm sorry, I'm off on a tangent here. But like the thing is, like we don't really have a lot of capacity to absorb volunteers, but we want to bring people in. And that's why we started, you know, this last week, we started we're going to do monthly work parties. So that will be like an entry point for people to get involved and also to like learn. So like we want to have like people show up and do a little work, learn a little something, and then help kind of keep this thing forward. So, I guess like, you know, if you want to get involved, DM me on Instagram or just like any of our, just
Well, I have a question, I'll wait.
yeah, just DM me on Instagram. I don't really like check our email that much, but we have an email account. I think Instagram is probably like the best way. You can find it on or just like any of our social media accounts. I'm on Twitter, just like all those. You can just DM me on any of those, and I will answer it because I'm really great about answering messages. And keep it a lookout for our next work party. It should be towards the end of the month. I'm going to try to have this one like more central. I'm going to try to book the Capitol Hill Library instead of like on the south end, just so more people could get involved. So just be on the lookout for that.
And this is gonna be our last question of the night, because after this, we gotta start our meeting out.
So police misconduct, I've done records requests, not for SPD, but other municipalities or jurisdictions for just the general request, give me the disciplinary record of XYZ officer,
Yeah.
but I don't know. We get, like, are they like complete or, cause I got this report and I was like, there's like, the dude's been on the force like for 20+ years. What you presented is like bullshit. And like, I heard from other people that he's been disciplined, so it was strange, like.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, it goes back to the same thing that I brought up in the presentation, is you have to be very specific about everything. It's like, you can't really just say, give me somebody's disciplinary record. And like the key to it, and this is the data that we're gonna publish on the disciplinary website. It's called EPAD, Evergreen Police Accountability Database, but like, it's gonna basically, like, you need to know the case numbers. Like this, it's like the same thing with the report numbers. You need to know, and then there's also like a lot of other sort of like annoying things. Like there's a huge difference between like King County discipline files. Like, so if I ask for like the investigator's report, they'll give me one thing at SPD, and then at King County, it'll be like a summary of all the files they have or something like that. And so you actually have to ask for something else. You have to ask for the findings, or you have to ask for like the summary report, or you have to use this very specific language, and it's kind of tricky and kind of annoying. But like and then the other thing too is like you can only get their disciplinary investigations. You can't get their personnel record, which actually, like a lot of times, has some serious stuff that they just buried and they never referred to for an investigation. Like, I recently found out that if you just get caught sleeping on the job, that's like not a big deal at this time. Like that is considered a performance issue, and then that goes in your personnel file, and your personnel file is completely exempt from public disclosure, like by law. So that's kind of like the reason why they do, or one of the reasons why they do that, is to keep all this stuff out of the public eye.
Well, thank you.
Okay, awesome. Let's give it one more time.